Okay, so we are going to go into another panel. Next, we'll be talking about quadratic funding experiments in government. And this panel will be led by Audrey Tang of Plurality.net, Yoshiro Tasaka of Shibuya Startup, and Shunsuke Takagi of Plurality Tokyo and DigDAO.
All right, all right. I'm very glad to have a great time like this. Actually, we have a 5-page of slide like this. It's so simple. Taiwan, Shibuya, DigDAO like this. So, quick introduction myself. I'm from the DigDAO, which is kind of the civic tech community forked by Digital Agency Government of Japan. We are trying to figure out how crypto mechanism could be used in the local government or public sector in the real world. So that's the I'm doing. Recently, DigDAO had started, actually now are opening right now, started a quadratic funding experiment, which is could be donated by the fiat currency. It's mean like your credit card, your Japan yen, like that. So we are hosting like that. Should we go to the Audrey? Yep.
I'm Audrey Tang. I served for 8 years as Taiwan's digital minister, and part of my work starting 2019 is to introduce the ideas that started from this space to the real world, to the government. We started introducing quadratic voting for presidential hackathon in Taiwan since 2019. It's been doing every year since to elevate the local experiments into national public infrastructures. And we work with the Ethereum Foundation to try out with presidential hackathon in 2022 September to distribute some funds, I think 10K USD. And today I will share a little bit about how we scaled that experiment from 10K USD to 2 million US dollars or more, and hopefully making it an annual thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Yoshiro Tasaka. I work for the Shibuya city. I'm doing startup divisions. Basically what I've been doing is building our infrastructure for innovations. So for example, we providing a visa for foreign entrepreneurs. Last 3 years we brought over 70 entrepreneurs to Shibuya. And also we've been trying to make our startup friendly services with corporations. We haven't done anything about Web3 quadratic funding yet, unfortunately. That's a sad part of. But last 2 years, we actively invite Web3 tech blockchain events to Shibuya, and then that's how we brought EdoCon to Shibuya this time. And then I'm glad that Finding Commons also happening this time. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good. So both of the speakers have a background which is working in the government, what's the government. So how to spend the money as a government? Maybe almost guys came from the non-profit or public sector. However, they didn't know about how government spend the money from the budget. Government gonna be the taxation as insurance or income like that, but where money going on? So can you explain about what is the typical public purchase of the government?
So in Taiwan, the digital investments from the government falls into two different pockets. One is called infrastructure pocket, and the infrastructure is like building airports, building train stations, and so on, because the Ministry of Digital Affairs is in the Transportation Committee in the Parliament. So if we can prove that there is some digital investment that is good generally, like a highway, except it's information highway, but it's good generally for the society. Then it qualifies for the public infrastructure kind of budget. The thing about this budget is that it's usually very long term. It's like 4 years, 10 years, or something like that. And you need to have a very clear social return on investment, knowing that for each dollar you put into it, how much time will be saved, how much commerce will be created, and things like that. So it needs to be very measurable, even from the first year onward, so that you can allocate very long-term budget. But there's also the more dynamic science and research budget. For science, research, and technology budget, it is more dynamic. You can change the expected output every year. You can use procurement proposals that are more agile, but the problem is that there is no guaranteed. So every year, if it doesn't pass the review, then maybe the budget goes elsewhere. And so usually these are the two kind of trade-offs. But a lot of the use of quadratic voting and quadratic funding is to start from smaller experiments and quickly figure out which ones are infrastructure in nature, which ones are general purpose in nature. And this is something that the quadratic mechanisms can really help.
I think many people now want to move to Taiwan now, but yeah, but probably everybody knows, but Japan doesn't have such a budget, especially the local government. And then, but I guess each local government has an ICT department, and then that has probably the small budget for their digitalizations, but it's not systematic like Taiwan. So unfortunately.
I have a question for the Tasaka-san. Is there money for their governance or execution? I mean, like, I wish the government should be focused on the governance. However, almost, especially like a local government, spend the money for the execution to spend day by day or year by year. So what's the current situation? Maybe I just want to hear about your criticism for your organization like that.
Probably if you're Japanese, you're so familiar with it, but so yeah, I'm not the proper employee for the Shibuya City. I was assigned by mayor to start startup divisions 4 years ago. So I was really surprised to see how the budget was built, and then basically, as you know. Each local government tend to just do whatever they did first 50, 60 years. So that's why we don't have a flexible budget, and then we don't have a way to assess what we have done much. And then Shibuya City, under mayor's initiative, so we try to kind of try to kind of check what we have done and what we were wrong, but not really critical ways. That's why we cannot use the money like Taiwan does.
Got it. In my opinion, the Audrey's work looks like focus on the how to governance by the government. Can you go to the next slide? This is my impressive example by Taiwan Judicial Minister of Government. This is quadratic funding experiment by Taiwan model. It's kind of the crowdfunding platform powered by Web2 crowdfunding platform. So in Taiwan, they are trying to figure out how quadratic funding could be useful for their resource allocation for the civic tech or kind of the NPO project. So I'm just wondering, this project is how to start it or how to start, or if you have any criticism or insight.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the collaboration with Ethereum Foundation and the local Taiwan Web3 community was really the beginning. In the September of 2022, they work with some winners of the presidential hackathon to try a very small scale round of quadratic funding, just to let people understand what that actually means. And so just a very quick primer, it means that instead of counting just the total amount of donation you receive and then matching the same donation, we count instead the square root of each individual donation added together. The good thing about taking the square root is that you cannot just have one single donor to donate like $5 million and then force the government to match $5 million, right? You have to actually convince a lot more people to donate small amounts of money. And so similar to a Gitcoin grant ground, we need to have some focus, some topic in the experimentation. And so one thing we learned from that small experiment with the Ethereum Foundation was that we really want the ones that corresponds to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so because that's like public good is universally more recognized this way, instead of the project saying I'm a public good, it is better if you can prove in which of the 17 categories you can actually make measurable impact. And so there's almost 1,000 applications when we started this round of the public interest innovation, and then we chose 100 of them that clearly has some potentially future measurable value in the social return of investment SROI scheme. And each of them receive 500,000 yen as just kind of getting them into the mood of starting their pilot or experiments. And once they do that, then we give them a few months, and then each of them receive 1.3 million yen if they make the cut of 50 projects. And so the quadratic funding actually only works with those 50 projects. And the reason why is that we are not building our own platform. We're working with existing crowdfunding platforms in Taiwan. The three largest ones, Wabe, Flying V, and Zeze, and they have their own way to tell a story of a project, of coaching the project to reach a wider audience. So we do not want to reinvent the wheel. We instead rely on kind of multi-party computation thing to make sure that if you're a single individual and you contribute to all the three crowdfunding sites, you're still only counted as one person. But then at the end of the day, we choose the top 20 based on the sorting of quadratic funding and allocate the final prizes to them. That's ranging from 23 million yen to or 9 million yen and so on. So as you can see, this is not a pure quadratic funding formula. It is more like staggered. So the ones that are the best, no matter what the formula says, will only get at most 23 million yen. It is the ceiling is set in the beginning. And people who are come on the 20s, the last, will nevertheless have 9 million yen if they did meet their social return on investment values. So you can see it as a kind of midway between voting and funding. It is not exactly matching the funding, but it is trying to approximate the matching funding. But the reason why is that this is in the policy making structured as a prize. And the prize money cannot be fluctuate. And so we have to start designing the staggered steps. And so the main lesson we learned is that it is quite intuitive if you work with existing crowdfunding sites. They already have a way to explain this kind of things. And you do not need a crypto wallet or something like that. The login is already very easy. So working with existing Web2 infrastructure turns out to be one of the better decisions that we have made. The main challenge is that not many people have heard of SROI. Social return on investment is not yet a mainstream practice, so we spend a lot of time to coach them into calculating SROI.
Interesting, interesting. I also have a question for the Audrey. What is the most different point compare the typical public purchases and quadratic funding or allocation? Because it seems like quadratic funding, the structure looks like a quadratic funding looks like a crowdfunding.
It is
So
a kind of crowdfunding.
yeah, that's made a like a application layer project could be attract more than infrastructure project. So what's the project should be putting on the this kind of the quadratic funding round? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mix, right? If you get a lot of people from crowdfunding, at least it means that your story touches a lot more people. But it doesn't automatically mean that your project delivers on the infrastructural level. That is for the SROI to prove. So that both components are equally important. You have to get the story out because that is what led the people actually try out the service. So you can have a good SROI calculation. If there's only 5 people using the service, you cannot make a SROI calculation. But on the end of the day, maybe the top 50, maybe 30 of them did not actually match the SROI targets. If you invest $1, but the entire society only save half a dollar, then you might as well just give the money back to the society, right? You're not achieving a positive more than 1 SROI. And so I think whether something is infrastructural can only be seen after a small-scale pilot. And this is what this quadratic funding round is trying to do, is just to get the sufficient buy-in from the population so that we can have a sizable tryout.
Perfect. Maybe Tasaka-san, we should be explain about our experiment as a DigDAO and the Shibuya. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. Actually, one of the project manager of DigDAO matching donation. This is kind of, we are following the Taiwan experiment as a quadratic funding round for the civic tech technologies. So maybe some of the Japanese people could be understand like 助成金の分配を自分たちで決める. It's mean like we can join the decision making, how to allocate our capital, our taxation, our tax to the civic tech projects. So that's the concept is for the quadratic funding. Also, the next slide. Now we are working on, this is on live right now, so you can search DigDAO matching donation, you can find our project. So we set the like 800 user as a matching pool, and then we attract 100 donor for this experiment. This is our first time experiment quadratic funding to distribute money for the civic tech project without like a cryptocurrency or something, any Ethereum ecosystem. So we could see like how can I say, like a long tail graph, allocation distribution, meaning like typical public purchases only provide one provider, like a government gonna decide, oh, we're gonna buy these services, we're gonna trade, we're gonna like that. However, when we're gonna using the quadratic funding, we could be distribute money based on our democracy, like a kind of opinion that based on the skin, like how much you skin the game for your favorite project. So that's the we how to do that. And go to the next slide. Here is a real data. We are on live, so we have like 18 projects on live at our initial stage. So we're gonna publish the analytics later, but maybe I'm just wondering to Audrey, what's the insight after you try to experiment in the quadratic fund round in Taiwan?
Yeah, I mean, next month there will be a final report. So the final report is not out yet, so I cannot say that much. But we do see a very similar long tail distribution. The ones that tells the story very well receive a lot of crowdfunding from a lot of people. And the ones that didn't tell the story so well, maybe they have 1 or 2 wealthy contributors, but they cannot spread that message that well. So something like that is usually seen. But I think one other thing that is useful and that we have seen from the presidential hackathon quadratic voting as well is that you can also analyze like the kind of people who vote for different projects and to find a synergy between those projects. So even the ones that did not make the cut, the final 20 or the final 10 in the presidential hackathon, you can still find the teams that are good synergy with them just based on the quadratic voting or quadratic funding materials, and then suggest those teams that didn't make the cut to join the ecosystem, to join the project that was chosen by the quadratic voting or funding mechanisms. So I think that part, we don't see that from the graph yet, but that was very useful when I served in the public sector to see kind of a radar of what kind of project is a good hub for other projects to build on. Means that it's more infrastructural in nature because many people consider it has more synergy with other projects.
Totally. Maybe some of the local government people is really interesting about how we can start this quadratic funding experiment in my local town. So I'm just curious about like for Tasaka, which is how to start kind of this experiment in their own local area, or how to coordinate internal like organization as a government like that.
Yeah, so actually last year I wanted to secure a budget for quadratic funding, and actually Seki-san すいませんでした so kindly he made an estimate, and then I proposed the budget but rejected last year, unfortunately. But I think because we've been doing a lot of Web3 events like this, and then thanks to Glenn and Audrey, yesterday actually they had a lunch with the mayor. Thank you. And then so I think now decision makers are now like motivated to do it. So I'm hoping next year we can try quadratic funding.
Good. So this is the last question. What is the future of the government? I actually asked the same question with Chris and IR and Kusunoki-san. So I just want to hear about your perspective. What's the future should be? Well, sorry. What should be by the future of the government? Like a government as a platform, or just experimenting like that?
Yeah. I think I really see ideas like this as expanding the kind of continuous smooth zone between the civic sector and the public sector. In previous ways like procurement, it is very 0 and 1, right? Only one vendor gets the tender, and everybody else don't get a tender, and then only the procured solution provider provide a solution, at least for the next year. But this kind of experiment, because it is structured as a prize, so in Taiwan, when you win the quadratic funding, the matching fund is not structured as a subsidy, because in quadratic funding, it is possible if you get a lot of people donating a very small amount of money, then the matching fund you will get will be more than 50% of your entire budget, right? And so, but if it is a kind of state subsidy, it means that your company becomes state-owned company, or that your project become a state-controlled project, which is why we don't structure it this way, because then it will go back to the old, like the state must control the future of the project, very discrete. And so instead, we say, no, this is a prize, award that we give you for successfully attracting these many people to support you. and for successfully demonstrating you have a positive social return on investment. Your success in demonstrating this is like writing a good novel or having a good film or something like that. And so whatever matching funding we give you is a prize, a recognition. And so prize money does not carry any strings, right? You don't have to change your course, your governance, because you receive a prize from the government. And so because it's structured this way, it's then much more smooth, because then the governance from those projects stay with the governance community in those projects. And so if we can discover more ways that can be structured like prizes and things that are awarded kind of retrospectively after the fact, and then I believe quadratic funding or retroactive funding and things like that will enable a much better interface between the government and the civil society, so that the government can support the ones that just happens to have infrastructural value or just happens to deliver public value without necessarily having to control the direction of where the civil society is going. And then the public goods that are built upon such infrastructure become much more fluid because they're not locked in to specific procurement winners.
Do you have any opinion?
Not opinion, but it's been 4 years in government, and it's very difficult to create a new things. But meantime, of course, the capitalism goes so fast, and then our society has a lot of issues, and the city has a lot of issues, and then we have to tackle on. And then definitely Shibuya wants to do something you have done in Taiwan, like a small versions of Taiwan. So I hope we can do that with your help. Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Maybe we can answer some question by the participant. So if you have any question, raise a hand.
Only 2 minutes.
Yeah, only 2 minutes, like.
There is a question.
All right. Let's go to Seki.
Hi, I'm Harusuke from Kodobo, Japan, and thank you for sharing the great use cases. My question is, how can we find a good area to work with the government? I think it's really important to not just explain this kind of technical solutions, because the government officials have their priorities. They want to solve the problems. Not they don't just want to use the fancy tech things. So we need the space for collaboration, and how we can find the very nice area to work with. That collaboration is needed.
Yeah. I think ultimately very small-scale experiments have its place, because for the government, that is not much to lose anyway. And so if you start many such smaller experiments and get people into a mood of experimenting, most governments should be okay if, as I said, we only started with like 10K USD with the Ethereum Foundation's help, right? And so for most governments, if it's very, very small scale, but then it raises the profile of the government, then each government agency, each government department also have their relative priorities compared to other departments, right? So in a sense, if trying out a new mechanism is an effective way to uplift their relative priority compared to other departments or compared to other cities or compared to other jurisdictions, then that by itself increases the legitimacy of the decision maker of that ministry or that department or that jurisdiction. So in a sense, I don't think this way of crowdfunding and so on is necessarily just because it's a good mechanism for decision making. It is also a popularity and legitimacy mechanism. So I think it's important to frame it as such. Like you can then let these many people know about your priority. These many people now know about the digital public infrastructure. These many people now know the importance of this SDG. And then you can uplift that voice. And so compared to the money that is spent on advertisement agency or something, these small experiments are nothing, right? And so it's always easier to frame it this way.
Thank you very much.
All right, Yoshiro.
First, I want to say you are my hero. You are amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you do. We're trying to do the same thing in New York, and it's very, very hard. So really appreciate the fact that you're actually executing. And next, I want to say so much of the success of quadratic funding is actually based on the model itself. And you talked a little bit about creating a ceiling, a floor, et cetera. And I'd love for you to give us a little insight into how you expect to iterate on that model and how we can perfect that model for this use case.
Yes. Thank you. So I think that the ceiling and steps are necessary because we structure it as a prize. And so people don't like a prize which value is only calculated when you issue the prize. It doesn't sound like a prize at all, right? But I think this stepwise is also useful in setting expectations so that people do not monopolize the most of the areas. If they really have something that's truly very, very successful nationwide, then everybody else will be kind of compressed if you have a allocated total budget. So I think the stepwise, in retrospect, served also as a function of people feeling it's more fair. It's a more fair playing field than the pure quadratic funding area calculation. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much. This is all.